Okay, hey YouTube. So 2 weeks ago, I made a video talking about Trump's transgender troop ban. And I expected there to be pro-Trump trolls out there. I expected there to be people who were against the concept of trans people in the military. What I did not expect were the people who are kind of anti-trans military service to actually be trans and be veterans. Because to me that just didn't make sense, because all of the trans vets I know support the idea 100%. Admiral Mullen, the former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, supports the idea 100%. The head of the Veterans Administration, the VA, supports trans medical care 100%. So the experts who have studied this and discussed this, and this has been a long time coming, support the idea of trans military service, because it turns out that mental health in the military is not really a function of your gender identity, your sexual orientation, your social class, anything like that. It is simply the fact that these are people who are selflessly subjecting themselves to potential death to serve their country. So, I mean, I can understand that that is a pretty stressful situation, and my brother did 2 tours in Iraq. I saw what that did to my mom, and he comes back and he says that one of the stories is that a soldier pointed a gun at a fellow soldier because he accused that guy of stealing his Game Boy. Like, think about that. You're pointing a loaded weapon at somebody because you say he stole your Game Boy, and you're in Iraq. And so that doesn't mean that he's mentally unstable. That just means somebody needs a timeout. It means that there's something there going on, and you need to unpack. But nobody here in the comments, nobody who's pro-military, pro-Trump, whatever, is ever going to accuse that guy of being mentally unstable, homicidal, suicidal, whatever. But they will say that trans people are unfit to serve because they're mentally unstable, and they'll go find some statistic like, well, the NTDS survey says 41% of trans people have attempted suicide. And say, oh, okay, well, if you want to go find a statistic to support some opinion that you have, you should know what that statistic actually means. And what it means is that the non-random, non-representative NTDS survey found that 41% of the respondents responded yes to the question, have you attempted suicide? But what the NTDS admits in its survey, and what other people who have discussed the survey or just even understand the basics of statistics or survey methodology know, is that you can't apply a survey like that against the general population. And what they've also found in other studies is that if you actually probe into a suicide attempt, you find that the definition of suicide attempt varies greatly, and the very specific kind of medical definition is somewhat more specific. And so not everybody who says they've attempted suicide has actually attempted suicide, according to the medical community. And so, the 41% is not actually 41%, and whatever that number actually is probably has at least something to do with the fact that, well, trans people are kicked out of their homes from, potentially a young age. They're denied jobs, they're denied housing, people want to deny them military service. And so it's like, okay, well, you can understand how trans people sort of may have some shit to deal with because they happen to be trans in a world that kind of treats trans people like shit. But what that doesn't mean is that you can't trust a trans person sitting next to you in the military any less than you can trust anyone else sitting next to you in the military, because it turns out that the military is relatively decent at, testing for fitness and readiness. And they that's why they give troops mental health exams every year, because they want to make sure that the people they're sending out there are ready to deal with the stress that can come with a combat situation. And so if the military doctors say, hey, this trans person is ready to go, then that trans person is ready to go. And whatever bullshit argument you want to come up with about their mental health or, sort of, inherent lack of mental health because they happen to be trans, there's no support for that. There's no support that the physiological effects of hormones mean that a trans person is any less capable of serving than somebody who isn't trans. Because it turns out that you can just give people these things called physical tests, physical fitness exams, and you can find out whether or not they're physically capable to serve. And you can say, oh, well, the hormones might dehydrate somebody if they're deployed in some situation without water for too long. And it's like, well, if you're going without portable water for too long, the fact that you're on a testosterone blocker like spironolactone isn't going to be the life or death factor in that situation. So basically, these people are just looking for whatever bullshit they can to support their opinion that trans people shouldn't serve. The generals, the military, the medical community, they did not bring this to Trump to address this potential flaw. The fiscal conservatives did not bring this to Trump because saving $8 million a year from the military budget was that important, because we are buying tanks that we park in the desert because we don't need them. The military is not a model of fiscal responsibility and financial efficiency. So get out of here with these garbage arguments that trans people don't belong in the military. Because if you're willing to serve, and you're physically capable, and you're psychologically ready, which a ton of trans people are, then thank you.